Hello, this is MusicTechHelpGuy. Welcome to this tutorial on mixing vocals with only 4 plugins. Believe it or not, this is basically how I start mixing vocals on almost every song I do, with the exception of some higher budget projects where I use almost exclusively hardware for EQ and compression, rather than plugins. I should preface this by saying that a good mix really requires a good recording. If your recording is crap, well, you're going to be doing more restoration in your mixing rather than actually mixing itself. I found that this method works as a great starting point for any vocals, for any genre, and it really helps to make the vocals pop out in the mix. I should also mention that this method will work basically for any DAW, not just Logic, because the plugins I'm using to do this are all third-party. I'm not using any of Logic's built-in plugins, so this can be done in Pro Tools or really any other DAW as well. Although you can try to simulate this technique with native plugins, but I don't think you're going to quite get the same result. All right, so the 4 plugins I'm going to use are HEQ from Waves, the CLA3A from Waves, although the CLA2A from Waves can be used as a substitute. I'm going to use the Lexicon Vintage Plate Reverb, and I'm also going to use the Doubler plugin from Waves. So directly on my lead vocal track here, right on the channel strip, I should say, I'm going to add first the HEQ from Waves, a really, really great EQ plugin, great for sort of fine tuning and getting really in surgically controlling the frequencies on an instrument or a voice. Second on the lead vocal track is going to be the LA3A compressor. It's a leveling amplifier, models the actual LA3A unit, and like I said before, the CLA2A also works as a decent alternative to this as well. If you're trying to model the LA2A, I'm going to create a auxiliary channel strip. In fact, I'm going to create 2 of those. The first one is going to be used as a doubler effect, and the next one's going to be used as for reverb. On the doubler channel, I'm using the doubler plugin from Waves. I'm specifically using the Doubler 4, which gives us 4 voices. This is going to be used just to thicken up the voice a bit. It's essentially kind of like a chorus plugin, but more like a natural detuned chorus plugin. So I really like that. And then on the verb track, I'm going to use the Lexicon Vintage Plate plugin. The Waves plugins are pretty common, although the Lexicon stuff is really expensive. The Wave stuff is actually pretty inexpensive, but the Lexicon bundle is like $600. So if you choose another plate reverb as a substitute, like Space Designer or one of the Waves reverbs, you can probably get away with something that's relatively close to this, with pretty much no loss in quality or very little noticeable loss in quality. I really just like I really love the Lexicon plugins because they emulate a lot of the settings on the actual Lexicon hardware units. So now I've got the plugins up. I'm going to just change the inputs to no input for now because I can see my mic is getting picked up in there. I'm going to just disable all these plugins just for now. And I have a limiter on the master channel strip. This is really just for, it's just to keep things from clipping. So that's not necessary. It's just there for me. It's there so my audio capture doesn't clip. Okay, so let's listen to our recording here. It's just, I've got a whole rendered instrumental track up here, as well as just a single lead vocal. The only reason I have the whole song rendered up here is it's because it's already been mixed. The song is completely mixed. We just haven't mixed the vocals in yet. This isn't normally the way I would do this. I would normally keep the whole mix up. I'm not going to render the mix down into an instrumental and then sing on top of it. It's just I decided to do it this way just to sort of make things look a little nicer for the video. So let's take a listen to this just dry as is.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love fill me with such sweet desire? I look above and I'm closer to the sky's gravity cannot hold me down.
All right, that doesn't sound so bad. It's just, she's a good singer. There's a lot of peaks and a lot of troughs that need to be taken care of. She needs to maybe be a little bit brighter in the mix so we don't have to pull her volume up so much. She's kind of a brighter singer too, so we may need to thicken up her voice a little bit and also add some reverb just to give it some atmosphere. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn on the HEQ and let me just solo out the voice here. Let's pull HEQ up here. One of the things I love about HEQ is the simple fact that you get like a nice display, and it actually analyzes the frequencies. So if I hit play here, you'll see all the frequency analysis for her voice.
Why does your love set my insides on fire?
So what I like to do with vocals is I like to pull the low end out. I'll pull in the high pass filter, low cut filter. Let me pull the Q up. It's just giving us a steeper slope. For female vocalists, I may pull this up a little bit more. For male vocalists, I'll put it down here more. But I generally don't go above 100 hertz here because I still want some of the low richness in there. I just don't need all this low end stuff in here, which she hardly has any low end in her voice anyway. So this is just extra energy just that shouldn't even really be there. For a male vocalist, it may be a little bit more important to let some of those lows come through. But for her, it's not really important here. Next thing I'm going to do is with my high mid-frequency band, I'm going to pull this up here, and I'm going to give her a nice like 10K boost. Now, the boost can really be anywhere between 5K and like 16K. It all depends on the singer. I am going to roll the Q up a bit to make this a little narrower band. In HEQ, you can also choose what type of band you want. I'm going to go with like a little more narrow band up here. Not quite one of the digital bands, but maybe something like that, yeah. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out a little bit in the mids, just a touch, and pull up the low mids a little bit. Just for her, it's more or less just because she's such a high singer. I want some of the low end to come out a little bit better. So let's see what this sounds like.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love fill me with such sweet desire?
So even that just alone really brightens it up. You can see I A-B'd it there. One thing we are seeing is that the plugin is clipping, so I'm just going to pull the input level down a bit so the plugin doesn't clip.
Why does your love set my insides on fire?
There we go. So the high ends are popping out quite a bit more. You may end up having to go and add another plugin, like a de-esser or something, to sort of control the S's, the sibilants, and the high frequencies. All right, next let's throw the CLA3A on here. I'm really a big fan of leveling amps for vocals just because they're so simple to use. There's no attack. There's no decay or release time. It's just an input and an output, a gain and a peak reduction, and that's really it. I use the compressor mode. One thing I always do with a lot of these modeled plugins from Waves is I turn off the analog option because the 1560 hertz analog option basically introduced some hiss into the signal, which we don't want. I'm going to pull the gain up to about 6 and the peak reduction up to about 6. Let's see what that sounds like.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love fill me with such sweet desire? I look above. And
then I basically just dial it to taste. If I want it more compressed, I pull the gain and reduction up more. Less compressed, I pull these down. So I'm going to go halfway between 6 and 7 for both of these. All right, so the next plugin I'm going to pull up is the doubler plugin. This is basically just going to be used to thicken the voice up a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a send, and I'm going to bus over on bus 1. So what I'm going to do is the doubler's input is going to be bus 1. And then I'm going to change the send here on the actual vocal track to bus 1. So basically what we're doing is we're sending signal from this track over to the doubler track. So why not just put the doubler right on the track? Well, because a lot of time-based plugins like choruses and reverbs and delays, you want to share that one delay unit with multiple channels, and you also want to be able to control how much wet and how much dry you get, and that's essentially what the send does. The higher the send amount is, the more this doubling effect we're going to hear from this track. And it also lets us separate the wet and dry signal. So if I want less doubler overall, you can pull it down, or more doubler overall, you can pull it up here. So this is pretty much the standard way to add time-based effects is on aux tracks. One thing to note is in Logic, whether your bus is pre-fader or not, it really basically, even if your bus is not set to pre-fader mode, if I just solo the doubler, you'll just hear the doubler effect without the dry signal in. In Pro Tools, if you want to do that, you actually have to make the send pre-fader. So just something to keep in mind. So let's hear what this sounds like right now.
Why does your love set my...
So it sounds like a bit of a chorus effect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on these other two voices. So it's basically what we're seeing here is the spread of the voices and also the volume of the voices. So let's turn on voices 2 and 4. I'm going to turn off the main voice because that's basically the dry signal. We're already getting the dry signal on the main track, so we don't need to hear that. We just want to hear the affected version. I like the way these are panned. I just may want to play with the detuning. So the whole purpose of this is that you up-tune one voice and then down-tune another voice at an equal amount, and it creates a nice beating or chorus effect, kind of similar to when you turn two oscillators on the synthesizer and you detune them. Another thing you can do, though, is you can create a depth for the detuning, which basically kicks in an LFO, which makes the detuning effect actually move around, so you get more of a scattered random chorus effect and less of like just a static chorus effect. And then you can control the rate of the LFOs too. So I'm going to make some of them fast, some of them slower. Again, this is all just to sort of randomize the effect. So let's hear what this sounds like.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love fill...
So I just pulled the depths down. It sounded a little too out of tune. Another thing you can do is actually pull the timing. So if you want one of the voices to be a little bit further behind the other voices, you can actually do that too if you want sort of like a slapback effect.
Why does your love...
I'm not going to go quite that far, but I am going to pull them a little bit apart. The last thing I like to do in here is this is basically just a 2-band EQ that allows you to roll out the high end and low end on the wet voices, on the wet sound, so basically on the doubler effect. I like to roll out some of the high end because phase issues are going to be the most prevalent in the high end, not in the low end. So we got sort of like a low passed chorus effect being blended with the original vocal. So here's just the doubler effect.
Why does your love set my insides on fire?
And then here's with the vocals soloed and added to it.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love fill me with such sweet desire? I look above.
And again, it's just a very soft thickening effect is really all it does through detuning. All right, last, we're going to add in our reverb here, our Lexicon Vintage plate. And this one's real easy. All I'm going to do is choose the preset called Bright Vox. That's the one I like to use. I also like to use Multi Vox if I'm using doing like backing vocals, but I really like the Bright Vox because it's got sort of like an echo to it in addition to the reverb effect. So I'm going to put the reverb on bus 2, and then the send will go to bus 2. We'll pull the send amount up a little bit, and let's just solo just the reverb. Now, make sure the mix is all the way at 100%. Again, we just want to hear reverb on this channel, no dry signal. And then with the vocals in.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love...
So I'm just dialing in my reverb channel to taste. Maybe I want more reverb, maybe a little bit less reverb. So let's hear all three of these on at the same time, and then I'll bring the music back in.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love fill me with such sweet desire? I look above.
All right, let's hear this with the music.
Why does your love set my insides on fire? Why does your love fill me with such sweet desire? I look above and I'm closer to the sky's gravity cannot hold me down. I'm in another world now.
Now, she sounds like she still needs to be edited a little bit better. There's a lot of breaths in there, and I left them in on purpose for this video because I wanted to demonstrate how adding compression and EQ to a channel can actually bring out the breaths more in a very bad way. So what I'll generally do is I'll go through and I'll take out all the big breaths, or at least reduce the volume on the big breaths, and then add EQ and compression, and it doesn't quite affect it quite as badly. So like I said before, this is not a definitive guide to mixing vocals. This is more or less a starting point that I almost always start from. So if you want to get creative and add delays and some other effects to the vocals, you can do that. But I generally use this format almost every single time I mix vocals as a starting point. I'd also like to give a shout out to the band, the RXN, for allowing me to use this song for my video. The name of the song is called White Bright Light, and I'll make sure I leave a few links in the video description where you can get to their Facebook page, their iTunes. So go check out the song, go buy their album. I've been working with these guys for the last year now. We just finished up their debut album that just came out this month. So go check them out on iTunes and show them some support. So I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd really like to support the channel, please check out our Patreon fund at patreon.com/MusicTechHelpGuy and make a contribution. Thanks for the support, and thanks for watching.